Hello, all, and welcome to Are You Hooked, where we discuss how a TV show captivates an audience. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
We are fascinated by what draws people into a story and want to understand the pieces that get us hooked on a TV show. Today, we will be discussing the opening scene of The Bear Season 1. Okay, Sarah, you want to give us a quick description of what happens in the scene?
Yes, in this scene, it opens with Carmy interacting with a bear on a bridge, and then he comes to and he is in the madness of a kitchen and having to deal with all the insanity that comes along with that.
The first of many on the show.
Honestly,
madness in the kitchen.
Yes, it's a lot. Multiple seasons of madness in the kitchen. Really what the entire show is about.
And somehow we as audiences love it. We're like, yes, get us back into that stressful, chaotic environment, because there's something oddly comforting about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to watch this scene, you can look at the show notes section to see the timestamps where we include where we've scoped this opening scene to. That's in play for our conversation today. The Bear is available for streaming on Hulu. All right, so let's dive right in. So, Sarah, based on the opening scene of The Bear, were you hooked? And why or why not?
Yes, based on this opening scene of The Bear, I was hooked. Honestly, I had forgotten that it started with this dream sequence, and rewatching that, I was so captivated by it because it's so interesting and different. And you're like, whoa, what is going on in this? This is not the show that I was expecting, starting on a bridge with a bear. But then my favorite part of this clip, and it's something that the entire show does really, really well, is the use of music. And when the show decides to insert that like heavy, just like propulsive rock, is just so effective. And it does that in this scene as well. That music comes in like a minute and a half into the scene, and it immediately makes your heart rate go up, and you are just stressed, and you are immersed in Carmy's world. And so I love the way that music is utilized so efficiently in this show, and you see that even in this opening scene. So yeah, I was instantly hooked. What about you, Jen? Based on this opening scene, were you hooked?
Yes, I absolutely was. I think what stands out to me about this scene is just the fresh construction of a visceral experience. The way that the cinematography, the fast cutting of the shots, the close-up shots, like this show from the very beginning is saying, we're taking you on a journey and we're putting you in environments that you have to keep up with and you're going to be breathless. And that's the point. And I just love the way that this opening scene creates that feeling first and helps us really understand what these characters are up against as they're figuring out how to run a restaurant. So I think that really stood out to me the first time watching this, is just how interesting the cinematography was. It felt like every close-up shot was significant in some way, and there's so much intentionality and meaning behind some of those fast cuts and close-ups. So we get to see a close-up of like a religious figurine. We get to see a close-up of these orders or these invoices that are past due. We get to see close-up of Carmy's face. Like, they are all constructed and so meaningful. And I remember feeling like my mind was needing to move faster to keep up with the show. And that's a really fun feeling because it signals to the audience, hey, we trust you and we know that you are ready for this journey and we're going to take you on it. So I think that's what stood out to me the most from this opening scene. Just very different from a lot of the ways that other shows might like ease you in. No, this show is throwing you fully in and knows that you can keep up and you're going to do it with all of its intentionality and meaning behind all of the shots. So that's what I really loved about this opening scene. I, too, like you, forgot about the whole dreamlike bear opening bit. But thematically, it frames literally the entire rest of the show. And I think that's also really notable, too, is it kind of eases you in slightly and then puts you in the deep end. You get to like dip your toe in and almost have this momentary state of calm before they just drop you full splash into the deep end.
And I love the juxtaposition between that dream bridge scene and then Carmi's real life, because it's so different. And you're right, it does have that sense of calm, like wonder. I don't know. I think there are undertones of maybe eeriness, but it's so mysterious and it makes you start asking questions. But then the show is so smart to just plunge you into Carmi's world, and we don't have time to be asking those questions anymore because we are just going. Like you said, with the cinematography and the editing is so fast paced. But I love that so much is communicated through those cuts, and each one is intentional. One of my favorite things that they include is that shot of that little card about Mikey, and you see the day he was born and then the day that he died on it. And so you're hearing about Mikey, and then you see that card and know, oh, Mikey's died. And we don't I don't think we know Carmi's relationship to Mikey yet, but we know that they are close and he has suffered this loss. And now he is in this kitchen flailing, and all of that is just communicated in these very quick little cuts. And I think that that's so smart that the team behind this show understand that we can absorb so much information without needing to be told anything. We can get it. We can follow along. We will miss things because it's so fast, but we will get enough to understand what's going on. And the show, like you said, it trusts us to follow along and to keep up as we go.
Yeah, yeah. And the way that a single fast cut shot can tell you so much is used by the bear throughout the show. But I think a great example in this opening scene is that close up. I think it's like 2 or 3 shots of the like red past due stamp on some of those bills that Carmi hasn't paid yet because the restaurant is underwater. Just tell you so much so efficiently about the state of the restaurant, because we don't know anything about this dude. We don't know anything about the restaurant. This is literally the first 2 minutes of the show, and we immediately know he's stressed out. They're underwater. There's an order that didn't get fulfilled, that something went wrong. So today is going to be stressful, but then also in general, this is not going well. They're not in a great spot. And just those few little shots immediately help us understand that very quickly without the show having to communicate that through a conversation between characters or even a character having to say that. We just, okay, we got it. We know they're not doing great. And the rest of the show is going to be them figuring out how to make this all work. I also thought it was really interesting now, having seen the last 3 seasons of The Bear, to go back and watch this opening scene and see how there's 2 things Carmi says at the end of this scene that I think are so representative of like the journey he goes on. But he says on the phone, he says, I'm still trying to figure this place out. And then he says, yeah, no, I miss him too, in reference to Mikey. And I just thought that was so neat to see how this opening scene with those 2 lines have like distilled down and are representative of the journey that Carmi's going to go on and some of the 2 like key pillars of the story arcs. And it's all seated so correctly in just those 2 lines in the first 2 minutes of the show. Like that's pretty genius and really, really fascinating to see now that we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I also love that there's so much in this opening scene for us to empathize with as well. Like, I don't know about you, but I have never worked in a kitchen. I am a terrible cook. Like, you don't want me cooking anything for you. It's bad news. So on a technical level, on a job level, I cannot relate to Carmi because I don't know what I'm doing in the kitchen. I don't want to be in the kitchen. But I know what it's like to be stressed about having to maybe pay bills and money is tight, or I walk into a situation and things are unorganized and I'm confused and I'm struggling to get a handle on it. Like, there are things that we can all empathize with. We know what it's like to suffer a loss, whether death or like a loss of an opportunity or, whatever it is. Like, we've all experienced types of these emotions. And so I love that in the first 2 minutes of this show, we see these different facets of Carmi as he is underwater and just trying to get by. And even though our circumstances might be different, there is a level of empathy that we can have with him just because we know what it's like to be stressed about money, or we know what it's like to be stressed at work. It just might look different in his context. So I thought, in addition to it being a great like introduction and just, I mean, it's not even an introduction. We're like cannonballing into Carmi's world, but it also creates so much empathy at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so true. And without us even knowing that much about him is just how affinity
Mhm.
we feel for him. I thought, even the opening sequence of the bear, that like dreamlike sequence, there's so much like metaphorical meaning in that. And because he has that dream sequence and then immediately wakes up in this state of panic and stress, it feels like that bear is like a personification of the stress and shame and like that loud voice in your head that's always yelling at you. Like that is the physical representation, metaphorical representation of that for Carmi. And all of us have a animal that looks and feels like that or plays that same role for us, where it's fueling some of those parts in ourselves that are constantly criticizing and being yelled at by that thing and kind of stalking us in our subconscious. And so I thought that was really neat too, to showcase the way that the bear growling at him is the thing that wakes him up as he's like now late and everything's going wrong in this incredibly stressful day, and how that might be making him feel as a result of that stress and kind of that those like self-worth identity things that we see him experience over the rest of the show, but it's just all implied at the beginning or kind of viscerally felt at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, I think that the juxtaposition between those two scenes is so important too, because if
Mhm.
you're having this very like deep emotional stuff going on, but you don't have the time to deal with it, or you don't create the space to deal with it, honestly, it sometimes shows up in weird
Relatable.
dreams.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's happened to me. And so but I also love that, like, it's this, like, mysterious thing. You see, kind of a symbol of some of the journey that Carmi's going to go on. But then once he's awake, he has no time for feelings. Like,
Mhm.
he just has to go, 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 go. All of those things of, like, self-worth and all of these deeper, meaningful things that Carmi is going to work through over the course of the show, he doesn't have time for. We got bills to
No.
pay. We got the wrong order for the store. Like, everything is going wrong. And so
Mhm.
I think that that's a really valuable thing too. Like, there's so much deeper going on within Carmi, but he does not have the time or the space or the bandwidth to deal with it right now. Like, he is literally underwater and is just trying to survive. And the fact that the show is able to communicate all of that in like 2 minutes is wild to me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So true. So true. And I thought it was notable on this, like, second viewing now that in that opening scene with the bear in the dreamlike sequence, he's wearing his clothing that he wears in the kitchen. And I thought that was just an interesting signal. Like, he's not wearing just like a t-shirt and jeans, you know what I mean? But like the way that he sees himself, this identity that he has as a chef and how that is pivotal to his understanding of himself and what brings him a sense of worth and value. It's his role and his ability to be great in this area. And obviously, like, a lot of that's explored later on over the course of the show and him pouring himself into his work and all those things. But just of all of the ways that that visually could have looked and what he's wearing as he's taking the bear out of the cage, he is wearing his chef's uniform. And I thought that was a particularly notable choice. I didn't have the capacity to think about that the first time around. I think the first time I watched this, I was like, oh my God, there's a bear. Why is there a bear? What does it mean? But some of those little details now are so intentionally chosen for us understanding while we're spending this few moments in Carmi's subconscious, it's so revealing for how he sees and views himself as well.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, you don't have the capacity to pick up on things like that the first time
Oh.
you're watching this. You don't even know this character. So I love the intentionality in that choice. The other visual thing that I think really stood out to me is that there's almost this like grungy filter on
Mhm.
this show
Yeah. Yeah.
that I remember being so intrigued by. You know, there are other shows that have done that, obviously, and some really, really great shows that have done that. But I feel like I hadn't seen that in a
Mm.
while. And
Yeah.
so that was also interesting to me, especially because we know now that we have watched 3 seasons of The Bear, how intentional they are with every choice. I think that that kind of grungy look
Grainy.
is
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so smart for this show, especially at this stage in the show too. So again,
Mm.
that idea that the show is communicating things for us to just absorb into us, and we can see, you know, the kitchen is a little worse for wear. They don't do things exactly right all the time. They cut some corners, and they're also just a scrappy, small shop.
Mhm.
And I love that the visual choices help impart to us some things about this show and this group of people, even before we meet them, just based on how the show looks. I think that that's really interesting as well.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And it's fit for the atmosphere of the show. Like, it's not looking like the way that this, like, Suits, an episode of Suits would look crisp with clean
Yeah.
lines and 2020, like, polished, smooth movement. No, this is we're in, like, the streets of Chicago, with, like, the people and the clientele and the way that what the bear represents too, of being accessible and a place where you can, like, take your shoes off, put your feet up, and feel comfortable and not feel like it's an uppity place is the spirit of what Mikey's created with the bear. So, yeah, that's a great observation. All right. Well, this was our discussion and analysis of the Bear's opening scene. You can find it available on Hulu. And my gosh, this show is incredible. So we just recommend this show in general. We also covered all 3 seasons of The Bear, so definitely go listen to some of our reviews of episode by episode, the journey that the bear goes on. Thank you for listening to this episode of Are You Hooked?, where we discuss how a TV show captivates an audience. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about this opening scene of The Bear. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TVNSPod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. And check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on TVNS and our other podcast, Movies and Us. We'll be back soon to discuss the final scene, the closing scene of The Bear Season 1, Episode 1. So in the meantime, we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.